Okay, hi everyone. I'm recording the lecture for Monday, the 5th of February. So this lecture is for my first day of travel. Just to let you know, this lecture is not going to be part of the midterm. I'm highlighting it here, and our midterm should be on the 7th, not including this lecture. We'll talk about it more in the class time. Again, this is not part of the midterm. So what are we talking about today? We will be talking about some of the defective conditions. So in the regular system, we know the dimensions and the orientations of the line. Corners have to be set every 40 chains, and the lines, whether they are in the meridian direction or perpendicular, they have the set or the orientation that has been set by the government or by the BLM. So now what if we have a case? If we go, for example, we have a township. Let me get the whiteboard here. If I have a township, 6 by 6 miles, now I go to subdivide it. Well, the first thing is you do a retracement survey. We'll talk about retracement survey. And when you retrace the survey, you find the monuments first. The first thing is you find the monuments that have been set before. So you find these 40 chain monuments. Okay? And then you start subdividing from these monuments. You start doing the subdivision. But before that, you need to put these monuments in a software or in the old days in a map and make sure they do close the township. They are at 40 and they are oriented whether in the north direction here, meridian, or in the east line. Again, I'm just drawing it, maybe better to draw it as a curve, but you know what I'm talking about. They should be set correctly. What if there is any defect in that? What if they are not set every 40 chain, for example, or the orientation is not coming exactly due north, it's a little bit tilted, or this line is not really following a parallel line? That is what we call a defective case. How are we going to deal with that? So you have the township. Are you going to subdivide it, or are you going to abolish it and restart over and do a new survey? Are there limits? Yes, that's what we will be talking about in this class. We will be talking about defectives, or how to check the principal meridian, and then the allowable deviation, and then the rectangular limits, and then the defective conditions. We'll see some of the cases, some of the examples here. So that's basically what we will be doing in this lecture here. Okay, now let me go here to my slides and start the first one. And just making sure I'm transferring the things correctly. Okay, slideshow, screen. Okay, I think that's the best way to illustrate these concepts here. So the first thing is surveying the principal meridian. You already have the principal meridian. We've talked about the principal meridian before, which is this line here. Now you go to retrace the line, go to resurvey the line, because you are going to subdivide this area here. You are going to subdivide this area. So the first thing you do is retrace it. Get the monuments every 40 chains, and you check if they are within the limits or not. So that's the first thing. The survey. When do we do the resurvey? If we are going to create subdivisions, or if we are going to do a new survey for the area. And that's what is meant by independent verification. You have the monuments already on the ground. Now you are, since you are resurveying, you are doing an independent verification to check the accuracy of the measurements made. Okay, what does it say here? Verification of the measurements will be done when subdivisional closing. So you are subdividing, or when you are requested by the government as a surveyor or as a federal surveyor to do the verification. Okay. First thing is, according to 2009 manual, which is the manual we are working with, and I also have the 1973 manual. What does it say? If the measurements between these monuments that are set exceed a certain limit, and the limit here is provided for us by the manual. What is the limit? 2 links per 80 chain. If the measurements are out of this tolerance, we need to do new measurements. We need to resurvey. So for example, if I have a line here between two monuments, monument 1, monument 2, and the distance between these two monuments is 80 chain, I'm only allowed two links. And the abbreviation for links is L and K here. That's for sure. So I'm only allowed 20 links, 2 links. So meaning if it's 40, if you have an intermediate corner here, if you have two corners that are 40 chains, then you are only allowed 1 link. That's for the principal meridian. And you see how stringent this limitation is. It only allows you for 1 link. And then you can proportion that if it's like 160, so 2 times 160 divided by 80 and so on. But that's the limit here. This is the limit in measurement. This is the limit for the distance measurement. It doesn't have to do anything yet with the orientation. So when you are resurveying the principal meridian, this principal meridian here, and the monuments are already set, you are going to subdivide the area here. You are going to create your townships. At any point, at any point, if the distance or if the discrepancy increase than 2 link, then you have to resurvey. Now, an important point some might ask. We said before, once monuments are on the ground, we cannot change them. That is correct after it has been approved by the government. What I'm talking about now is before these plats and these surveys are approved. So we have a point here. We have a very distinct point. Before and after the approval. I'm talking about before the approval is made, before the patent is given. So before that, the survey is still questionable. The government still can question the survey and resurvey the area. So that's a very clear point here. It's not after the government has subdivided the area and issued patents. That can't happen. Once monuments are on the ground and the patent and approved patent provided, you cannot change that. Okay. Now the alignment. By the alignment, I mean how off are these principal meridians from true north or from where they should be. So let's say you went and you resurvey, and this is how it looks like. This is the principal meridian. It's off by an angle here. What does the government tell us about this case? Are we going to accept it? Again, it's not approved yet. Is the government going to stamp it and approve it? Not if it's off by more than 50 seconds. So the deflection of the line from north is more than 50 seconds. Hold on. Resurvey. Or, I mean, resurvey meaning you find the error and then you correct it. So again, it's an independent test before the government issue or approve the survey and then issue the patent. Anything like a deflection above 50 seconds from the true Crodenian course has to be resurveyed. Okay. That's according to the 2009. According to the 1973, it was a little bit more lenient than that. It was for the distances, 7 links per 80 chain instead of 2, 3 minutes instead of 50 seconds. So you see, the 2009 is a little bit more stringent than the 1973, and that makes sense. I mean, because now we are using much more accurate instruments at that all day. Who knows? Maybe you are resurveying and you are using worse equipment than the ones they had. Okay. The baseline. We've talked about the principal meridian here. Let me get a pointer. I don't know what the pointer is. Okay. We've talked about the principal meridian here. Now, how about the baseline? The accuracy of the alignment and the measurement of the baseline, the accuracy of the alignment and the measurement are the same as those required for the principal meridian. So it does describe itself here. What does that mean? That means for the principal meridian, we have to follow the 2 links per 80 chain and the 50 seconds according to the 2009. That is the same. Same, you see the word same as those for the principal meridian. Both measurements and alignments. So that should be exactly the same. You go, you survey the area, you find the monuments now on the baseline, and if they are defect by more than whatever is given here, the 2 chain and 50 seconds, then you need to resurvey before the approval of this pattern or before the approval of the map. Okay, now let's go. Okay, so let me go back here to my presentation, continuing what we just started. Defected. Okay, so talking now, going from the principal meridian and baseline, now talking about the townships. What are the limitations for the townships? And the manual also does tell us this. The alignment, meaning the direction of any new latitude boundary. So what is the latitude boundary here? It is this line. If I try to highlight it, it's the latitude boundary is the south line or this line. So what the government is telling us here, or what the manual is telling us here, when you are establishing a new line, when you are establishing a new boundary, and this southern boundary is very important for us because it is the line that, again, that we are going to start all the different subdivisions for the sections from. So it has to be less than 14 minutes out of the 2 quadrennial course here, meaning if it's more than 14 minutes from the east-west direction, that's not desirable. And it didn't really say if you need to re-establish the line, but from the next sentence, the 14-minute limit for exterior. So the word limit here, I interpret this word as it's a limit. If you exceeded the 14 minutes, you have to resurvey. Here it says desirable, and this is a manual, so I have to be very careful with the wording here. It's desirable that it shall not depart. Well, here is the limit. So that sets the limit here, and that's what most of us should consider here. Okay, how about if you have already an established boundary? How can this happen? Let me show you the case here. Let's assume I have a township like this that has already been, let's say, established in the 50s. And now I'm going to establish a new township. So what happens is I use the previous township, the northern line of the previous township as my base for the coming township. When I'm going to make this township, I'm going to place it on top of the other one. Top meaning going south, north here. So when such case happens, should I resurvey this line? Not really. If you have this line within 21 minutes, so here it's a little bit more lenient, it gives you more room here. That is considered, if it's within the 21, that's not considered defective. It's more, if it's more than 21, it is considered defective, and we'll see what we can do with such cases. But again, if it's within, if you are making a new township, this line has to be within 14. Another case, you are building on a previous township. This township has already been established in the 50s, and now you are making a new township. So this township could be up to, or this line could be up to 21. Now, some of you might ask, well, why is it really saying about establishing new townships? Isn't the whole land, or hasn't the whole land been surveyed? Not really. A lot of the areas in Alaska, because Alaska, remember, is one of the PLSS states, is still being surveyed. So that's very important to mention here if you are making a new survey. Okay, defective exteriors. Let me put this aside and then I'll bring it when we need it, because I have it here for a purpose. Township boundaries already established may be defective in alignment or measurements. And that means if I go to the whiteboard here, or maybe go to paint, also paint is really very useful. What is paint? Okay, so paint is all windows, a little bit here, paint. So if I have a township here, it could be defective, again, the exterior of the township. I'm not talking yet about the interior, the exterior of the township could be defective in what they call alignment, meaning the lines are not in the cardinal directions. This line is not north-south, or this line is not east-west. What should we do in this case? That's what we are going to talk about. Let me go back here to my presentation. That's in the alignment. Okay, well, I'll just continue here without really going back. So in the alignment, if these lines are out of the alignment, how about if they are defective in measurement? Measurement means that the corners set are not exactly at 40 chains. So when you set the corners here, these corners are not at 40 chains. What should we do in these cases? That's what we will be talking about in this slide here. Okay, so defective. Defective exteriors could be alignment and measurement again, or position. Position means that the lat long of the corners are not right. So if you want me to draw it, that means that the township corners are not in the correct lat long, are not in the correct position on the earth, latitude, longitude. So these corners are shifted. Maybe they should be here, and they are shifted in their position. So what should we do in these cases, and how does the manual address these cases? If the boundary is defective in measurement, position, and is not subject to rectification, the location of the original monuments cannot be changed. Let's describe it, or let me illustrate this. So you have a township that has already been established, and you cannot change it. It has already been approved. Remember the keyword here, it has already been approved, and you cannot really change it once it's approved. But what if I'm doing now the same thing? What if I have this line and I'm going to make a survey for a new line? I'm not sure why this didn't show up all red. What if I am building my new township, as we just saw here on this township? So its northern boundary is going to be my boundary for the, or the southern boundary for the next township. Should I just use the same corners, or should I do something else? Here is what the manual is saying. They cannot be changed. You cannot change these corners. You cannot change the monuments that have already been set. So these monuments that are at 40 and 80 cannot be changed. I'm going to show it in the pink here. But for the marks on them, they need to be changed, showing only the township below. Let me show you this in paint. That might be much better. Paint is here. Okay, so let me create a new one. This is the township that has already been established, And this line here, the northern boundary of the line, has already been established. I cannot change it anyway. This line has already been established for this township. I cannot change it, but it's defective, and I'm going to create a new township above it. So let's take a closer look here at what's going to happen here. Let's zoom in. These monuments that are set, here is what the manual is saying. There are monuments that are set here. There is a corner here, for example. And this corner, since it's between this township and this township, should be marked with both townships. When we take the marking of the townships, it will look something like this. It will have a cross here saying, just for simplicity, we'll take a closer look at this, but just for simplicity, it's going to say township, let's say 2 north, range 1 east. So this is what this township is. This is what should be written on this monument up here. While this one should also be marked. It's going to be, if you remember, township 1 north, range 1 east. Why? Because it's below it. So it's going to be township 1, both are north, and range 1. So this is the range here. So let me go over it now. So this one here, this corner here, and instead of having these two marks, and instead of having the name of the township and the one above it, we should not mark it with this one. This should be taken off the mark here. We should not write that it belongs to this township. It only belongs to the southern township. How about the one above it, the one that we are going to place on it? Well, it will have its own corners. So we will get a corner, another corner, and this other corner, the one in blue, is going to be the one that is controlling township 2 north, range 1 east. So we'll have double monuments here. You see, we'll have 2 monuments here. Hopefully this illustrated. Hopefully this illustrates the concept here. So that's what the manual is saying here. That is what the manual is saying. Let's go over the wording again, and maybe I can show it one more time. If a boundary is defective in measurement, so the monuments are set incorrectly for this southern township, and it's not subject to rectification, meaning it has been approved by the government. So I cannot change anything. So I cannot change the location, but I can change the mark and the accessories, meaning rewrite on the marks and the accessories that it only stands for the one that has already been established. And then new corners to control the survey of the adjoining or the one above it are to set at the correct regular distances. If this is not really clear, let me illustrate it one more time differently. I'm hoping this is helping. That's the best I can do so far. And again, time is really limited for the conferences, and they were at the exact same time for the classes. So there wasn't really anything I can do about it. Okay, so I'm sharing this here. This is the township that has been established, and I'm going to set the monuments at the incorrect distances. So assume these are incorrect distances now. And then it's approved, so you cannot really change the monuments. These monuments has already been marked. So if you look at the marking here, it will say what township this one is. Let's say, as I said, township 1 to the north, range 1 to the east. This is what you should see here, because this is township 1, for example. Now you are going to establish township 2, range 1. You are going to establish this township. We start, remember, from this line, this is our border line. This is where we commence our new survey. You come, you do the retracement, you found that there is a defective in measurement. Again, that's in measurement. These monuments are not set every 40, 80. What should we do in this case? Should we use them? No. The manual is saying, in this case, you establish your new corners. That's what the manual is saying. And this one here, make sure you don't write over. You don't etch them with Township 2. Just leave the Township 1. That's what the manual is saying. Don't write Township 2 on them. But for the new ones, you create their own corners, their own monuments, and then you write that these ones are for Township 2 North and Range 1 East. This is what we call here the mark, or changing the marks here, if the marks have already been established. Okay, let me go to hopefully that illustrated. I know this is a little bit confusing, but hopefully the way it's illustrated will help. Okay, what's next? The south boundary of a township is the regular governing latitude boundary, unless defective in alignment. Well, we know that this is the controlling boundary, but what does it mean, unless defective in alignment? Well, I think you got it. This line, if it's tilted or if it's inclined like this, it's not following the cardinal direction here. Does that mean we should do something else? Yes, the manual is saying we are going to do something else here. So you use this line, the red one, as long as it is not defective in alignment. If it's defective in alignment, then you have to do something else. What should we do? That's what we will describe here. Rectification of a fixed south boundary defective in measurement, and then rectification of a fixed south boundary defective in alignment. So if you have the south boundary here, if this south boundary is defect in the measurement, and it's not subject to rectification, we said that the original corners are changed to reference only those on the township to the south. That's what I just described a little earlier, but I'm getting you the language of the manual with the sketch that the manual is using. It's really very important to start understanding what the sketches are saying. So this sketch here, this is what this is saying. This is just what I just described a little earlier here, but now I'm putting it more in the manual language. So you have the monuments, they are defect. Actually, the manual is making much better illustration than what I have. See, the monuments are not set at the correct distances here. And it's also nice to show it in different ways. Okay, so what should we do for this here? The original corners are changed to reference only those sections of the townships to the south. So it only will be marked with the townships to the south. The new corners of the sections above it, and then you can read the manual language here, the sections and the quarter section corners for sure. Let's use another color here. The new corners here will be set at regular distances. So you see here, this is the regular distance. Maybe let me go above it a little bit so you can kind of see it. Every 40 chain. And these monuments, or these corner monuments, are going to be stamped or are going to be marked with the marks representing the boundaries or the township and sections above it. So hopefully this illustrates the defective exterior here. Okay, how about the alignment now? Let's talk about the alignment now, because the alignment here is a little bit different. If the south boundary is defective in alignment, that's the second case. We said measurement and alignment. What should we do here? Here is the thing. A sectional correction line should be established. What is a sectional correction line? That's the question I would like to read first and then describe on the slide here. A sectional correction line is a latitudinal section. Anytime you see the word latitudinal, that means the line is running east-west. Again, considering the curvature of the Earth and the curvature of this line. A latitudinal section line runs to rectify a defective latitudinal governing boundary. And it runs on the cardinal bearing. So this line is going to run east-west to intersect the opposite controlling boundary where a closing corner is established. What does all of this mean? Okay, so here is the case. Let me go to the coloring now. I'm building on this south line here. That is defective. You see, the alignment here is defective for sure. You see, the line is defective. It's tilted somehow or out of the cardinal direction here. So I can't really build on it. I can't have all the township, the one option, or some of you might say, well, why don't I just, I'm having a hard time seeing the point of view. Maybe I should go a little slow. Here it is. Maybe one option is to just have our lines parallel to it, all of them defective. No, that's not what the manual or the BLM manual is saying. It says establish a sectional correction line, establish a correction line. Not here, but at the very first mile or at the very first top tier to this last tier of sections. So at the very first top tier, this here, you establish your correction line. And you establish this correction line not parallel, but now in the cardinal directions. Now you establish it in the correct east-west direction. So that's what it says. Run on a cardinal bearing. Run on an east-west bearing here. And once it hits here, it's going to hit a monument to intersect the opposite controlling boundary. So this is the controlling boundary. So it's going to hit here, and I establish what I call closing corner. That's one thing. On the other side, it's going to hit this line, and you establish another controlling corner. And then you follow this line. That's now your control line. So the next line is also going to be in cardinal direction between the two opposite controlling lines or controlling boundary lines, and then you establish your controlling or closing corner. Again, you have to really watch very carefully what the manual is saying, because that's not the case, but one can read it as you take one of the monuments here and you run the line cardinal from it. That's incorrect. You establish the line. That's what the manual is saying. You establish the line in the cardinal direction, meaning east-west, plus it closes on the boundary here with a closing corner. That's one case for closing corners, and so on. So these lines are all cardinal direction. Now, that means that sections 31 all the way to 36 are going to also be irregular sections. Remember, section 1 to 6 are irregular, while 31 to 36 are also going to be irregular in this particular case, not in every case. So in most cases, the general plan is these sections, 31 to 36, are regular sections if we have no defective boundaries in alignment. But in this case here, these sections are going to be irregular. And the way we subdivide them is opposite to the way we subdivide section 1 to 6. But that's out of the course of this class. Okay, so we've seen here two cases. We've seen if the south boundary is defective in measurement, we establish new corners at regular sections. And if it's defective in alignment, we establish sectional correction line. So please be aware of these terms and these definitions and how it works, please. Okay, now back to the concept. If we have a township, reminding you that if we have, sharing the screen has stopped, okay. Share screen, let's go to paint. And let me get this here, and you remember that the controlling latitude line is the south boundary of the township. This is where we start the township from. And remember also that we start subdividing the township from east. So for any township, these are the controlling lines. The line to the east of the township and the line to the south of the township. So how about this line here? What do we do for the east boundary line? What do we do for the east line? That's what we call here the east boundary is the governing meridional boundary. So the governing meridional or the governing meridional boundary or the governing north south line is the east boundary. That's in all cases unless it's defective in alignment. Unless it's defective in alignment, then we have to do something else. If it's defective in measurement, it's still the governing boundary. But if it's defective in alignment, we have to do something else. And I think some of you have started thinking now. Before I go and describe it, well, if it's defective in measurement, we just have to create new monument on the same line. If it's defective in alignment, then we have to establish some correction line. Let me pause here, stop recording, and then I'll come back after checking this part. So continuing here, one other part. Okay, is the defect is the elongated sections. And to illustrate here, sometimes when we do the surveys, let me go to the paint, we end up with a case. Okay, let me clear this and maybe bring the township I use and place it here. If we have a township like this and we are closing, for example, at a very close boundary line or a state line, there is no really reason to start a new township at this location. So the manual didn't really say what the cases are to have elongated sections that are elongated to the north here. So what can we do with this section? Instead of having a new township, the manual allows us to elongate this section. The manual allows us to make section 1 a little longer and have it extend all the way to the boundary line. Let me use this color here. And that will be the new section. Let's just focus on section 1. That's going to be section 1. Now, how do we subdivide section 1? The manual also tells us how to subdivide section 1. The manual tells us to subdivide section 1 as following. So we'll have the subdivision like this. This is how section 1 is going to be subdivided. And the numbering here are going to be as follows here. When we look at it, so we have the south, southeast, southwest, and what was named the northeast, which was this part, now has lot numbers instead. What was named, let's use different color here, or maybe no fill, and then we put the outline as this length and this color. This was the red here, the red box here. That was section 1, the northeast quarter of section 1. Now it has been subdivided, or now it has been divided into 4 different lots. And the other part, which is this part, that was the northwest part, has also been subdivided or divided into other lots. And the extension here, that is the extension. If I draw the same boundary line that I was talking about, which was here, and give it a width and give it some sort of color. This here is the line, what I was calling the state line. Now we extended, we elongated this blue here, this blue part here, this blue box. We elongated section 1 all the way until it hits here. And we subdivided this part into lots. And we followed the convention that the manual is telling us to mark these lots here. Okay, so this is how it will look like. All the lots are, in a very rare case, in the ideal case, are going to be 20 by 20. That's the way that these lots are marked. And that has been defined since 1973. So in the 1973 manual, that's the way the government or the BLM is asking us to subdivide these elongated sections. Okay. Fractional sections. We've talked about fractional sections before. I'm here showing the 2 photos or the 2 sketches here for a fraction, or for 2 different fractional sections. We see here, this is section 17. If I got this nice box here and move it, that doesn't have to do anything with that. So no confusion here. I'm just getting the box. This was section, or this is section 17. This is section 20. And this is section 19. And this is the other section. You have to figure that out. That's exactly, yep, that's section 18. 17, 18, actually it's written here, 19, 20. So if you looked here at these different sections, this Lens Lake here is taking part of section 17. So that's why it's an incomplete section or a fractional section. You look at it, this part, the southwest quarter, can't be subdivided actually. It has less than 40 acres. Same thing here, but all the different quarters here, and so on. So you can see that. If you apply the same thing for another case, you see here that section 25, Yellowstone River is passing through it, and it's not allowing us to subdivide it into these quarter sections of 40 acres here. However, section 33 is a normal section, so we have no issues with that. It's not a fractional section. And section 35 is also invaded by the river, and same thing for this section 26. So you kind of see now a little bit more about what a fractional section is. A section with one or more subdivision of less than 40 acres due to one of the controlling corners never being set. So you look here and kind of you can say that, well, this corner, controlling corner was not set, this controlling corner was not set, and so on. Okay, how do we subdivide such sections here if we are going to subdivide them? The manuals say when you subdivide these sections, there are different ways to do that. Arithmetic mean, weighted mean, parallel lines, but I'm not going to go through them now. I'll just show you the fractional sections. The idea of fractional sections, and then we'll talk about the subdivision of these sections later. Okay, that concludes this lecture. So you got this lecture in different parts. That's it. And that's again the end of February the 2nd, sorry, 0205. So that's the end of February the 5th lecture. Okay, thank you.